which is one of Napoleon Hill's first books. And it is a really good book, actually. If you've never read Think and Grow Rich, I highly recommend reading or listening to this one first. And if you have read Think and Grow Rich, I highly recommend listening to this one as well, because you see this additional aspect of what he's teaching in that book. So, chapter 4, definiteness of purpose. It is impressive to recognize that all the great leaders in all walks of life and during all periods of history have attained their leadership by the application of their abilities behind a definite major purpose. I'm going to jump right in here and just let you know, it is great to set an intention, especially before listening to growth audio, to books that are about motivation and self-growth and business. I guess anything deserves an intention, but 100%. When you set intention, you receive the answers better. And especially a book like this from Napoleon Hill, definiteness of purpose being a key aspect of, really just getting any sort of riches. And I'll put them in quotes here, but ultimately riches, he goes into explaining, it's about the money, but it's also about the ideas and the knowledge. And the main thing that we got from the first few chapters is you have to share what you have. So you have talents, you have skills. If you don't do anything with them, you lose them, you die sooner. If you do something with them, you'll get more back. And then when you get more and you share more, you will get back exponentially. And that's really what it comes down to. So now we're breaking into the definiteness of purpose here. If anything comes up, I will let you know. If there are any errors, I take those as errors in the timeline for you to receive extra epiphanies, like little shouts out from the government that runs your intentions, your body, your mind, your life. What I mean by that is you are the governor of your soul. If you believe that or not, the point is for you to be more purposeful with your actions and activities. And I'm here to help you achieve your desires, which might be, in fact, you just melting into your present moment, most ideally understanding karma. So without further ado, we're going to continue with this chapter. But if you have any questions, always drop them down below. And this is Master Key to Riches. We're going to read Definiteness of Purpose, and we are going to read The Habit of Going the Extra Mile. That's what we're going to read today. And ultimately, just put some headphones in. Go about your day. If you're driving, you got it as an audiobook. Awesome. Do not look at the screen. But we are going to be reading this book here. And the intention is that throughout this whole thing, as well as any errors, that I might read, or any opinions I might give, it is to give you a better receivement of the intention that you've set. So definitely set an intention, because this book, Master Key to Riches, written by Napoleon Hill, I believe produced or sponsored by Dale Carnegie. Was it Dale Carnegie? Yeah, Mr. Carnegie. We'll call it Mr. Carnegie. Get a little lost there sometimes. It really is about you receiving what you need and what you desire as best as possible. And they definitely suggest something for nothing is not a thing. So pay with your attention and let's get at it. Definiteness of Purpose. Chapter 4, Master Key to Riches by Napoleon Hill. It is impressive to recognize that all the great leaders in all walks of life and during all periods of history have attained their leadership by the application of their abilities behind a definite major purpose. Classified as failures have no such purpose, but they go around and around like a ship without a rudder, coming back always empty-handed to their starting point, of course. Some of these failures begin with a definite major purpose, but they desert that purpose the moment they are overtaken by temporary defeat or strenuous opposition. They give up and quit, not knowing that there is a philosophy of success which is dependable and as definite as the rules of mathematics and never suspecting that temporary defeat is but a testing ground which may prove a blessing in disguise if it is not accepted as final. It is one of the great tragedies of civilization that 98 out of every 100 people go all the way through life without coming within sight of anything that even approximates definiteness of a major purpose. And it was Andrew Carnegie's recognition of this tragedy that inspired him to influence some 500 great American leaders of industry to collaborate in the organization of this philosophy of individual achievement. There you go, Andrew Carnegie. He's like, Napoleon, we gotta do this, Actually, he didn't say that. He gave him the option, and Napoleon Hill acted, right? Mr. Carnegie's first test, which he applied to all of his associate workers who were under consideration for promotion to supervisory positions, was that of determining to what extent they were willing to go the extra mile. His second test was to determine whether or not they had their minds fixed upon a definite goal, including the necessary preparation for the attainment of that goal. I kind of like that because definiteness of purpose is the main thing, but going the extra mile is the second point. But if he's hiring someone, he wants them to go the extra mile because the point of his company is ultimately the definiteness of purpose of his goal, right? When I asked Mr. Carnegie for my first promotion, said Charles M. Schwab, one of his employees, he grinned broadly and replied, "If you have your heart fixed on what you want, there is nothing I can do to stop you from getting it." Mr. Schwab knew what he wanted. It was the biggest job within Carnegie's control, and Mr. Carnegie helped him to get it. One of the strange facts concerning those who move with definiteness of purpose is the readiness with which the world steps aside that they may pass, even coming to their aid in carrying out their aims. How Andrew Carnegie found the perfect employee. The story behind this philosophy is dramatic and demonstrates the importance that Andrew Carnegie placed upon definiteness of purpose. He had developed his great steel industry and accumulated a huge fortune in money when he turned his interest to the use and the disposition of his fortune. After he had recognized that the better portion of his riches consisted in the knowledge with which he had accumulated them and in his understanding of human relationships, his major aim in life became that of inspiring someone to develop a philosophy that would convey this knowledge to all who might desire it. And this is, what we continue teaching here. He was then well along in years and recognized that the job called for the services of a young person who had the time and the inclination to spend 20 years or more researching the causes of individual achievement. After interviewing more than 250 possible associates who he suspected might have such ability, by chance he met a young man who had been sent by a magazine to interview him for the story of his achievements. Carnegie's keen insight into human character helped him to recognize that this young man might have the qualities for which he had long been searching, so he set up an ingenious plan to test him. He began by giving the young man the story of his achievements. Then he began to suggest to him that the world needed a practical philosophy of individual achievement that would permit the humblest worker to accumulate riches in whatever amount and form the worker might desire. For 3 days and nights, he elaborated upon his idea, describing how one might go about the organization of such a philosophy. When the story was finished, Mr. Carnegie was ready to apply his test to determine whether or not he had found the person who could be depended upon to carry his idea through to completion. You now have my idea of a new philosophy, he said. Gonna be drinking water here to make sure, this hour long of talking, I'm hydrated and not dry-mouthed. You now have my idea of a new philosophy, he said, and I wish to ask you a question in connection with it that I wish you to answer by a simple yes or no. The question is this: if I give you the opportunity to develop the world's first philosophy of individual achievement and introduce you to those who can and will collaborate with you to develop it. Do you wish the opportunity, and will you follow through with it to completion?" The young man cleared his throat, stammered for a few seconds, then replied in a brief sentence that was destined to provide him with an opportunity to project his influence for good throughout the world. "Yes," he exclaimed, "I will not only undertake the job, but I will finish it." That was definite. It was the one thing Mr. Carnegie was searching for: definiteness of purpose. Many years later, this young man learned that Mr. Carnegie had held a stopwatch in his hand when he asked that question, and had allowed exactly 60 seconds for an answer. If the answer had required more time, the opportunity would have been withheld. His answer had actually required 29 seconds. Mr. Carnegie explained the reason for timing him. "It has been my experience," he said, "that a person who cannot reach a decision promptly, once all of the necessary facts for a decision at hand are explained, cannot be depended upon to carry through any decision that person may make. I have also discovered that those who reach decisions promptly usually have the capacity to move with definiteness of purpose in other circumstances." The first hurdle of Mr. Carnegie's test had been covered with flying colors, but there was still another that followed. "Very well," said Carnegie. "You have one of the two important qualities that will be needed by the person who develops the philosophy I've described. Now I shall learn whether or not you have the second. If I give you the opportunity to develop the philosophy, are you willing to devote 20 years of your time to research the cause of success and failure without pay, earning your own living as you go along?" Dang, what a question. 20 years, over 125 years ago. Holy cow, think you were in that situation. Yeah, I'll give you 20 years of my life. It is Andrew Carnegie. He's literally the richest person at the time, right? That's pretty intense. I guess it seems like a good idea. The question shocked him. He assumed that since he had been chosen by Mr. Carnegie for so important a job, he would be subsidized for Mr. Carnegie's huge fortune. He recovered quickly from the shock. However, by asking Mr. Carnegie why he was unwilling to provide the money for so important an assignment. "It is not unwillingness to supply the money," Mr. Carnegie replied, "but it is my desire to know if you have a natural capacity to go the extra mile by rendering service before trying to collect pay for it." Then he went on to explain that the more successful people in all walks of life were, and had always been, those who followed the habit of rendering more service than that for which they were paid. He also called attention to the fact that subsidies of money, whether made to individuals or to groups of individuals, often do more injury than good. And he reminded the young man that he had been given an opportunity which had been withheld from more than 250 other people, some of whom were much older and more experienced than he. He finished by saying, "If you make the most of the opportunity I have offered you, it is conceivable that you may develop it into riches so fabulous in nature as to dwarf my material wealth by comparison. For that opportunity provides the way for you to penetrate the keenest minds of this nation, to profit by the experience of our greatest American leaders of industry, and it might well enable you to project your influence for good throughout the civilized world, thereby enriching those who are not yet born." Mr. Carnegie had found the person for whom he had been so long searching, and this person had received his first lesson on definiteness of purpose and willingness to go the extra mile. 20 years later, almost to the day, the philosophy, so 120, the philosophy that Mr. Carnegie had designated as being the reason for his riches was completed and presented to the world in an 8-volume edition. Okay, so about 100 years ago. And what of the man who spent 20 years of time without pay? Some ask. What compensation did he receive for his labor? A complete answer to this question would be impossible, for the man himself does not know the total value of the benefits received. Moreover, some of these benefits are so flexible in nature that they will continue to aid him the rest of his life. But for the satisfaction of those who measure riches in material values alone, it can be stated that one book written by this man and the result of the knowledge gained from the applications of the principle of going the extra mile has already yielded an estimated profit of upward of $3 million. The actual time spent in writing the book was 4 weeks. Why these principles are so effective. Definiteness of purpose and the habit of going the extra mile constitute a force which staggers the imagination of even the most imaginative people, although these are but 2 of the 17 principles of individual achievement. I mention these 2 principles together for one purpose, to indicate how the principles of this philosophy are interconnected like the links of a chain, and how this combination of principles leads to the development of stupendous power, which cannot be attained by the application of any single one of them. We will now analyze the power of definiteness of purpose and the psychological principles from which this power is derived. First premise. The starting point of all individual achievement is the adoption of a definite purpose and a definite plan for its attainment. Second premise. All achievement is the result of a motive or combination of motives, and there are 9 basic motives which govern all voluntary actions. These motives have been previously described in Chapter 2. Third premise. Any dominating idea, plan, or purpose held in the mind through repetition of thought and emotionalized with a burning desire for its realization is taken over by the subconscious section of the mind and acted upon, and it is thus carried through to its logical climax by whatever natural means may be available. Fourth premise. Any dominating desire, plan, or purpose held in the conscious mind and backed by absolute faith in its realization is taken over and acted upon immediately by the subconscious section of the mind. There is no known record of this kind of desire having ever been held without fulfillment. Fifth premise. The power of thought is the only thing over which any person has complete, unquestionable control. A fact that for some might suggest the need for a close relationship between the mind of man and infinite intelligence linked together by faith. Sixth premise. The subconscious mind may be reached through faith and given instructions as though it were a person or a complete entity unto itself. Seventh premise. A definite purpose backed by absolute faith is a form of wisdom, and wisdom in action produces positive results. The major advantages of definiteness of purpose. Definiteness of purpose develops self-reliance, personal initiative, imagination, enthusiasm, self-discipline, and concentration of effort. All of these are prerequisites for the attainment of material success. It induces one to budget one's time and to plan all day-to-day endeavors so they lead toward the attainment of one's major purpose in life. It makes one more alert in the recognition of opportunities related to the object of one's major purpose, and it inspires the necessary courage to act on those opportunities when they appear. It inspires the cooperation of other people. It prepares the way for the full exercise of that state of mind, known as faith, by making the mind positive and freeing it from the limitations of fear and doubt and indecision. It provides one with a success consciousness, without which no one may attain enduring success in any in any calling. It destroys the destructive habit of procrastination. Last, it leads directly to the development and the continuous maintenance of the first of the 12 riches, a positive mental attitude. These are the major characteristics of definiteness of purpose, although it has many other qualities and usages, and it is directly related to each of the 12 riches because they are attainable only by singleness of purpose. Compare the principle of definiteness of purpose with the 12 riches, one at a time, and observe how essential it is for the attainment of each. Then take inventory of the people of outstanding achievement whom this country has produced, and observe how each of them has emphasized some major purpose as the object of his endeavors. Henry Ford concentrated on building the first low-priced, dependable automobiles. Thomas Edison devoted his efforts to scientific inventions, and Andrew Carnegie to the manufacture and sale of steel. F.W. Woolworth concentrated on the first large-scale general stores, and Philip Armour on meatpacking and distribution. William Randolph Hearst focused on newspapers, and Alexander Graham Bell on developing the first telephone. In our present day, every Olympian athlete trains with one major purpose before him or her in our historic past. Our nation depended on the major purpose of Jefferson, Lincoln, Washington, Patrick Henry, and Thomas Paine, who devoted their lives and in some instances their fortunes to the freedom of the rest of us. Hey, what's up, guys? Good to see you. This light might be multiplied until it contained the name of every great American leader who has contributed to the establishment of the American way of life as we of today know it and benefit by it. Here's an additional edit for the modern copy I have. How to acquire a definite major purpose. The procedure in the development of a definite major purpose is simple but important. If you follow these steps, you will begin to reap the rewards of your efforts. Write out a complete, clear, and definite statement of your major purpose in life. Sign it and commit it to memory. Then repeat it orally at least once every day, more often if practicable. Repeat it over and over, thus placing all your faith in infinite intelligence. Write out a clear, definite plan by which you intend to begin the attainment of the object of your definite major purpose. In this plan, state the maximum time allowed for the attainment of your purpose and describe precisely what you intend to give in return for the realization of your purpose, remembering that there is no such thing as something for nothing and that everything has a price which must be paid in advance in one form or another. Make your plan flexible enough to permit changes at any time you are inspired to do so. Remember that infinite intelligence, which operates in every atom of matter and in every living or inanimate thing, may present you with a plan for far superior to any you can create. Therefore, be ready at all times to recognize and adopt any superior plan that may be presented to your mind. Keep your major purpose and your plans for attaining it strictly to yourself, except insofar as you will receive additional instructions for carrying out your plan in the description of the mastermind principle which follows. Do not make the mistake of assuming that because you may not understand these instructions, the principles here described are not sound. Follow the instructions to the letter. Follow them in good faith. And remember that by so doing, you are duplicating the procedure of many of the greatest leaders this nation has ever produced. These instructions call for no effort that you may not easily put forth. They make no demands upon time or ability with which the average person would find it difficult to comply. Decide now what you desire from life and what you have given in return. Decide where you are going and how you are to get there. Then make a start from where you now stand. Make the start with whatever means of attaining your goal you have at hand. And you will discover that to the extent you make use of these other and better means will reveal themselves to you. That has been the experience of all those whom the world has recognized as successes. Many of them started with humble beginnings with little more to aid them than a passionate desire to attain a definite goal. There is enduring magic in such a desire. Soon you will learn about a principle that is the key to all great achievements. The principle that has been responsible for our great American way of life, our system of free enterprise, our riches, and our freedom. But first, you must make sure that you know what it is that you desire of life. Ideas that lead to success begin as definiteness of purpose. It is a well-known fact that ideas are the only assets that have no fixed values. It is equally well known that ideas are the beginning of all achievements. Ideas form the foundation of all fortunes, the starting point of all inventions. They have mastered the air above us and the waters of the oceans around us. They have enabled us to harness and use the atmosphere itself, through which one brain may communicate with another brain through telepathy. The phonograph was nothing but an abstract idea until Edison organized it through definiteness of purpose and submitted it to the subconscious portion of his brain, where it was projected into the great reservoir of infinite intelligence, from which a workable plan was flashed back to him. And this workable plan he translated into a machine that worked. The philosophy of individual achievement began as an idea in the mind of Andrew Carnegie. He backed his idea with definiteness of purpose, and now the philosophy is available for the benefit of millions of people throughout the industrialized world. Any idea that is held in the mind, emphasized, feared, or reverenced begins at once to clothe itself in the most convenient and appropriate physical form that is available. That which people believe, talk about, and fear, whether it be good or bad, has a very definite way of making its appearance in one form or another. Those who are struggling to free themselves from the limitations of poverty and misery must not forget this great truth, for it applies to an individual just as it does to a nation of people. Self-suggestion. The link between the conscious and the subconscious mind. There is a working principle through which thoughts, ideas, plans, hopes, and purposes which are placed in the conscious mind find their way into the subconscious section of the mind, where they are picked up and carried out to their logical conclusion. Through a law of nature I should describe later. To recognize this principle and understand it is to recognize also the reason why definiteness of purpose is the beginning of all achievements. You can transfer thought from the conscious to the subconscious section of the mind more quickly by the simple process of stepping up or stimulating the vibrations of thought through faith, fear, or any other highly intensified emotion, such as enthusiasm, a burning desire based on definiteness of purpose. Thoughts backed by faith have precedence over all others in the matter of definiteness and speed with which they are handed over to the subconscious section of the mind and are acted upon. The speed with which the power of faith works has given rise to the belief held by many that certain phenomena are the result of miracles. Psychologists and scientists recognize no such phenomenon as a miracle, claiming that everything that happens is the result of a definite cause, albeit a cause which cannot be explained. Be that as it may, it is a known fact that those capable of freeing their minds from all self-imposed limitations through the mental attitude known as faith generally find the solution to all life's problems regardless of their nature. Psychologists recognize also that infinite intelligence, while it is not claimed to automatically solve riddles, nevertheless carries out any clearly defined idea to a logical conclusion. Aim or desire that is submitted to the subconscious section of the mind in a mental attitude of perfect faith. But infinite intelligence never attempts to modify any thought that is submitted to it, and it has never been known to act upon a mere wish or indefinite idea, though thought or purpose. This truth, well grounded in your mind, will give you sufficient power to solve your daily problems with much less effort than most people devote to worrying over their problems. So-called hunches often are signals indicating that infinite intelligence is endeavoring to reach and influence the conscious section of the mind. But you will observe that they usually come in response to some idea, plan, purpose, or desire, or some fear that has been handed over to the subconscious section of the mind. All hunches should be treated civilly and examined carefully, as they often convey, either in whole or in part, information of the utmost value to the individual who receives them. These hunches often make their appearance many hours, days, or weeks after the original thought which inspires them has reached. One more time. These hunches often make their appearance many hours, days, or weeks after the original thought which inspires them has reached the reservoir of infinite intelligence. Make sense? Meanwhile, the individual often has forgotten the original thought. It's about the imagine and then forget, right? This is a profound subject about which even the wisest know very little. It becomes a self-revealing subject only upon meditation and thought. If you understand the principle of mind operation that I've described, you will have a clue as to why meditation sometimes brings that which one desires, while at other times it brings that which one does not wish. This type of mental attitude is attained only by preparation and self-discipline. We will learn how to develop this mental attitude later in the seminar. It is one of the most profound truths of the world that the affairs of all people shape themselves to fit the exact pattern of thoughts, whether the thoughts are mass thought or of individual thought. Those who are successful become successful only because they acquire the habit of thinking in terms of success. Definiteness of purpose can, and it should, so completely occupy the mind that one has no time or space in the mind for thoughts of failure. Another profound truth consists in the fact that those who have been defeated and who recognize themselves as failures may, by reversing the position of the sails of their minds, convert the winds of adversity into a power of equal volume which will carry them onward to success. As one poet said, "One ship sails east, the other west, impelled by the self same below." One ship sails east, the other west, impelled by the self same blow. It's the set of the sails and not the gales that bids them where to go. Interesting. To some who pride themselves on being what the world calls cool-headed and practical, this analysis of the principle of definiteness of purpose may appear to be abstract or impractical. There is a power greater than the power of conscious thought, and often it is not perceptible to the finite mind. Acceptance of this truth is essential for the successful culmination of any definite purpose based on the desire for great achievements. Every circumstance of everyone's life is the result of a definite cause, whether it is a circumstance that brings failure or one that brings success. And many of the circumstances of everyone's life are the result of causes over which that person has or may have control. This obvious truth gives importance of the first magnitude to the principle of definiteness of purpose. If the circumstances of people's lives are not what they desire, those circumstances may be changed by changing their mental attitude and forming new and more desirable thought habits. How definiteness of purpose leads to success. Of all the great American industrialists who have contributed to the development of our industrial system, none was more spectacular than the late Walter Chrysler. His story should give hope to every young American who inspires to the attainment of fame or fortune, and it serves as evidence of the power one may gain by moving with definite purpose. Chrysler began as a mechanic in a railroad shop in Salt Lake City. From his savings, he had accumulated a little more than $4,000, which he intended to use as a fund to set himself up in business. Looking around diligently, he decided that the automobile business was a coming industry. So he decided to go into that field. His entry into the business was both dramatic and novel. His first move was one that shocked his friends and astounded his relatives, for it consisted in his investing all his savings in an automobile. When the car arrived in Salt Lake City, he gave his friends still another shock by proceeding to take it apart piece by piece until the parts were scattered all over the shop. Then he began to put the parts together again. He repeated this operation so often that some of his friends thought he had lost his mind. That was because they did not understand his purpose. They saw what he was doing with the automobile, but they did not see the plan which was taking form in Walter Chrysler's mind. He was making his mind automobile conscious, saturating it with definiteness of purpose. He was observing carefully every detail of the car. When he was through with his job of tearing down his automobile and rebuilding it, he knew all its good points and all its weak ones. From that experience, he began to design automobiles embodying all the good points of the car he had bought and omitting all its weaknesses. He did his job so thoroughly that when the Chrysler automobiles began to reach the market, they became the sensation of the entire automobile industry. His rise to fame and fortune was both rapid and definite, because he knew where he was going before he started, and he prepared himself with painstaking accuracy for the journey. Observe these men who move with definiteness of purpose wherever you find them, and you will be impressed by the ease with which they attract the friendly cooperation of others, break down resistance, and get that which they seek. Analyze Walter Chrysler accurately and observe how definitely he acquired the 12 riches of life and made the most of them. He began by developing the greatest of all the riches, a positive mental attitude that provided him with a fertile field in which to plant and germinate the seed of his definite major purpose, the building of fine motor cars. Then one by one, he acquired other riches: sound physical health, harmony in human relationships, freedom from fear, hope of achievement, the capacity for faith, willingness to share his blessings, a labor of love, an open mind on all subjects, self-discipline, the capacity to understand people, and last, financial security. One of the strangest facts concerning the success of Walter Chrysler consists in the simplicity of which he attained it. He had no appreciable amount of working capital with which to begin. His education was a limited one. He had no wealthy backers to set him up in business, but he did have a practical idea and enough personal initiative, but he did have a practical idea and enough personal initiative to begin right where he stood to develop it. Everything he needed to translate his definite major purpose into reality seemed almost miraculously placed in his hands as fast as he was ready for it, a circumstance that is not uncommon to those who move with definiteness of purpose. Edward Bach, a famous leader of his time, was an immigrant at the beginning of the 20th century who made history by following these principles. He came to this country at the age of 6, not able to speak the language, starting as a humble office boy for Western Union. He was to edit the Ladies' Home Journal and make it the first magazine in the world to have 1 million subscribers. He was also a champion of social causes. He helped conserve Niagara Falls and establish the Woodrow Wilson Professorship of Literature at Princeton. Bach did all this with his practical ideas and enough personal initiative to develop them. Everything he needed in order to translate his definite major purpose into reality seemed almost miraculously placed in his hands as fast as he was ready for it. a circumstance not uncommon to those who move with definiteness of purpose. Each of Bach's greatest desires became his aim. He truly desired to be recognized as a great American citizen, an ambition fueled by the vastness of opportunities his adopted country offered him. He attained that aim. Let me point out that each of Bach's aims was created by himself, in his own mind, and each was attained by his own efforts through sheer merit. He did not depend on lucky breaks, did not expect something for nothing, but shaped his own destiny by careful planning based upon definiteness of purpose. Like Walter Chrysler, Bach conditioned his mind for success by acquiring all of the 12 riches. $2 million in less than an hour. Shortly after the book Think and Grow Rich, a one-volume interpretation of a portion of the Andrew Carnegie philosophy of individual achievement was published, the publisher began to receive orders for the book from bookstores in and near Des Moines, Iowa. The orders called for express shipment of the book. The cause of the sudden demand for the book was a mystery until several weeks later, when the publisher received a letter from Edward P. Chase, a life insurance salesman representing the Sun Life Assurance Company, in which he said, "I am writing to express my grateful appreciation of your book, Think and Grow Rich." I followed its advice to the letter. As a result, I received an idea which resulted in the sale of a $2 million life insurance policy, the largest single sale of its kind ever made in Des Moines. The key sentence in Mr. Chase's letter is in the second sentence. I followed its advice to the letter. He moved on that idea with definiteness of purpose, and it helped him to earn more money in 1 hour than most life insurance men earn in 5 years of continuous effort. In one brief sentence, Mr. Chase told the entire story of a business transaction which lifted him out of the category of ordinary life insurance salespeople and made him a member of the coveted $1 million roundtable. Whoa! I actually grew up near one of the headquarters, and I never knew what it was till I pulled in. That's funny. Somewhere in reading the book, Mr. Chase's mind established contact with the mind of the author of the book, and that contact quickened his own mind so definitely and intensely that an idea was born. The idea was to sell a life insurance policy larger than any he had ever thought of selling. The sale of that policy became his immediate, definite, major purpose in life. He moved on that purpose without hesitation or delay, and his objective was attained in less than an hour. Holy cow! That's crazy, less than an hour. Wow, man, abundance is real. Just how I discovered my own personal power. As Andrew Carnegie once said, the person who is motivated by definiteness of purpose and moves on that purpose with the spiritual forces of his being may challenge those who are indecisive at the post and pass them at a grandstand. It makes no difference whether someone is selling life insurance or digging ditches. A definite, potent idea, when it is fresh in one's mind, may so change the biochemistry of that mind that it takes on the spiritual qualities which recognize no such reality as failure or defeat. The major weakness of most people, as Mr. Carnegie so often declared, is that they recognize the obstacles they must surmount without recognizing the spiritual power available to them that will allow them to remove those obstacles at will. I recall as though it were only yesterday the circumstances of my own recognition of the spiritual powers available to me. And strangely enough, that recognition came from the same book that inspired Edward P. Chase to lift himself into the upper brackets of achievement into his chosen profession. Think and Grow Rich. My wife brought the book home from the public library and asked me to read it. The moment my hands touched the covers before the book had been opened, I felt a strange thrill of inspiration which caused me to begin then and there to open the book and read it. Before I had finished the first chapter, I recognized that some strange quirk of fate had caused the book to be placed in my hands. I took it to bed with me and read it from cover to cover before I went to sleep. The next morning, I awoke a new man. I do. I had been reborn. Indecision and doubt were forever gone. In 6 brief years, that idea enabled me to project my influence for the benefit of millions of people throughout a large portion of the world. At long last, I had acquired the blessed art of sharing my riches with others. And I had acquired the 12 riches in their fullest and most bountiful form. Moreover, I had discovered my other self. That self I had never known before. I also had discovered the existence of the 9 practices, which guide me in all that I do. I was so elated over my changed life that it seemed imperative that I meet the author of the book and thank him in person for my good fortune. Finding him was like searching for a needle in a haystack, for he had retired and was living in seclusion. His publisher could not give me his address, so I traced him from one address to another until I finally located him after having crossed the continent 3 times in my search. My urge to meet the author was due mainly to a feeling I had that he had not exhausted his entire knowledge on the subject of individual achievement through the pages of Think and Grow Rich. In this assumption, I was correct, for I discovered that he had mentioned only 3 of the 17 principles of individual achievement in this book, that he had written an entirely new course in which the entire 17 principles had been presented. Applying the principles of going the extra mile, a principle in which I believe devoutly, I induced the author to permit me to carry out a very important portion of my definite major purpose in life, that of assisting in taking this philosophy to an ailing world at a time when it was most needed. I said to the author, as I now say to you, that I would rather have had the privilege of being the author of that philosophy than to have been President of the United States. And next to that, I would rather have the privilege of helping to take it to the world than to own all of the world's wealth. This privilege has been granted me. I exercise my privilege in a variety of ways. First, I made the philosophy available, although in a brief form, through a series of radio programs which were broadcast several times a week. Next, I helped to make the philosophy available in printed lessons, which would be distributed to the people through newsstands and bookstores throughout the country. Then, I aided in having it filmed for presentation at company meetings and distributed to them through the cooperation of management. In addition to these outlets for the philosophy, I helped organize a nationwide series of private study groups at which the philosophy is presented. It is my purpose to cooperate with the religious institutions of the nation by helping to provide the means by which the philosophy may be made available to their members. I have also arranged with the author of the philosophy to write a book for children in which the philosophy will be interpreted in terms that will grip their imagination. This book will be distributed through bookstores and it will be available for use in the public schools. Beyond this, I hope to make other contributions as opportunities present themselves, leading to the distribution of this philosophy on a scale so vast that it will become available to every person who is searching for his or her place in the world. Thus, I have had the privilege of revealing the inner workings of a mind that has been inspired with a definite major purpose in life. And though the task may seem extensive, let me assure you that my contribution will be truly a labor of love. My compensation consists of an ever-increasing reward, which is known only to the man who has discovered the blessed privilege of gaining riches by sharing his blessings with others. Riches, the real riches of life, increase in exact proportion to the scope and extent of the benefit that bring to those with whom they are shared. I know this to be true, for I have grown rich by sharing. I have never benefited anyone in any manner whatsoever without having received in return from one source or another 10 times as much benefit as I have contributed to others. In sharing my riches with others, I seek no glorification, for my donations are made anonymously, except in rare instances when my identity must be revealed. Instead of seeking glorification of my name, I prefer to glorify my soul through useful service to others. The riches I give away add to my own wealth and state of being. How to find your definite major purpose. One of the strangest of all truths which has been revealed to me is the fact that the surest way to solve one's personal problems is to find someone with a greater problem and help that person to solve it through some method of application of the habit of going the extra mile. This is a simple formula, but it has charm and magic. It never fails to work, but you cannot appropriate the formula by the mere acceptance of my testimony as to its soundness. You must adopt it and apply it in your own way. You will then need to no testimony as to its soundness. You will find that many opportunities surround you. You might begin by organizing a fellowship club among your own neighbors or fellow workers, casting yourself for the role of leader and teacher of the group. Here, you will learn another great truth, namely that the best way to appropriate the principles of the philosophy of individual achievement is by teaching it to others. When one begins to teach anything, one begins also to learn more about that which one is teaching. You are now a student of this philosophy, but you can become a master of it by teaching it to others. Your compensation will be assured you in advance. Thus, your compensation will be assured you in advance. My apologies. I appreciate you for listening. Thank you so much. No matter what line of work you are in, this is your big opportunity to find yourself by helping others to adjust their relationships in peace and harmony. The manager who guides followers by this philosophy will have the confidence of those philosophers and those followers and their fullest cooperation. If you have not already adopted a definite major purpose in life, here is an opportunity for you to do so. You can start right where you are, by helping to teach this philosophy to those who are in need of it. The time has come when it is not only beneficial to the individual to help his neighbor to solve his personal problems, it is imperative that each of us do so as a means of self-preservation. If your neighbor's house were on fire, you would volunteer to help put out the fire, even if you were not on friendly terms, for common sense would convince you that this would be the means of saving your own house. Ain't that the truth? On the other hand, those with a sound philosophy of life will find themselves surrounded with an abundance of opportunities that did not exist a decade ago. Those who try to get ahead without a definite major purpose will meet with difficulties far greater than the average person can handle. The more lucrative opportunities of the world of today and tomorrow will go to those who prepare themselves for leadership in their chosen calling, and leadership in any field of endeavor requires a foundation of sound philosophy. The days of hit and miss leadership are gone forever. Skill, technique, and human understanding will be required in our constantly changing world. Take inventory, you who are without a definite major purpose, to find out where you fit in this changed world. Prepare yourselves for your new opportunities and make the most of them. If I had the privilege of so doing, I could no doubt choose for you a definite major purpose suited in every way to your qualifications and needs. And I might create for you a simple plan by which you could attain the object of that purpose. But I cannot serve you more profitable by teaching you how to do this for yourself. Somewhere along the way, the idea for which you are searching will reveal itself to you. That has been the experience of most of the students of this philosophy. When the idea comes, you will recognize it, for it should come with such force that you cannot escape it. You may be sure of that, provided you are sincerely searching for it. One of the imponderable features of the philosophy is that it inspires the creation of new ideas, reveals the presence of opportunities. Excuse me. Please pardon me. One of the imponderable features of this philosophy is that it inspires the creation of new ideas, reveals the presence of opportunities for self-advancement which had been previously overlooked, and inspires one to move on one's own personal initiative to embrace and make the most of such opportunities. This feature of the philosophy is not the result of chance. It was designed to produce a specific effect. Since it is obvious that an opportunity which one creates for oneself, or an idea with which one may be inspired through one's own thought, is more beneficial than any one may borrow from others. For the very procedure by which an individual creates useful ideas leads unerringly to the discovery of the source from which one may acquire additional ideas when needed. While it is of great benefit to have access to a source from which to receive the inspiration necessary to create your own ideas, and self-reliance is an asset of priceless value, there may come a time when you will need to draw upon the resources of other minds, and that time is sure to come to those who aspire to leadership in the higher brackets of personal achievement. How to harness your own personal power. Next, I shall reveal to you the means by which personal power may be attained through the consolidation of many minds directed by the achievement of definite ends. It was by this same means that Andrew Carnegie ushered in the Great Steel Age and gave America its greatest industry, although he had no capital with which to begin and very little education. And it was by this means that Thomas A. Edison became the greatest inventor of all time, though he had no personal knowledge of physics, mathematics, chemistry, electronics, or many other scientific subjects, all of which were essential in his work as an inventor. It should give you hope to know that lack of education, lack of working capital, and lack of technical skill need not discourage you from establishing as your major goal in life any purpose you may choose. For this philosophy provides a way by which any goal within reason may be attained by anyone of average ability. The one thing it cannot do for you is to choose your goal for you. But once you have established your own goal, this philosophy can guide you unerringly to its attainment. That is a promise without qualifications. I cannot tell you what to desire or how much success to hope for, but I can and shall reveal to you the formula by which successes may be attained. Your major responsibility right now is to find out what you desire in life, where you are going, and what you will do when you get there. This is one responsibility that no one but you can assume, and because of procrastination, it is a responsibility 98 out of 100 people never assume. That is the major reason why only 2 out of every 100 people can be rated as successful. Success begins through definiteness of purpose. Got 2 right here. 2 out of 100. Singleness of purpose is a priceless asset. Few possess it, yet it is an asset which one may appropriate at a moment's notice. Make up your mind what you desire of life. Decide to get just that, without substitutes, and lo, you will have taken possession of one of the most priceless of all assets available to human beings. But your desire must be no mere wish or hope. It must be a burning desire, and it must become so definitely an obsessional desire that you are willing to pay whatever price its attainment may cost. The price may be much or it may be little, but you must condition your mind to pay it. The moment you choose your definiteness, your definite major purpose in life, you will observe a strange circumstance consisting of the fact that ways and means of attaining that purpose will begin immediately to reveal themselves to you. Opportunities you had not expected will be placed in your way. The cooperation of others will become available to you, and friends will appear as if by a stroke of magic. Your fears and doubts will begin to disappear, and self-reliance will take their place. This may seem to the uninitiated a fantastic promise, but not so to the person who has done away with indecision and has chosen a definite goal in life. I speak not from the observation of others alone, but from my own personal experience as well. I have transformed myself from a dismal failure to an outstanding success, and I have therefore earned the right to give you this assurance of what you may expect if you will follow the roadmap provided by this philosophy. When you come to that inspiring moment, when you choose your definite major purpose, do not become discouraged if relatives or friends who are nearest you call you a dreamer. Just remember that the dreamers have been the forerunners of all human progress. They have given us the great American system of free enterprise. They have given us our greatest asset, the privilege of enjoying personal liberty and the right to dream when we choose. They have given us the greatest Air Force and the greatest Navy in the world. They have pushed back the frontiers of civilization and have made of the American way of life a glorious pattern which is the envy of the rest of the world. And many other places in the world have done this now too, haven't they? Maybe. Christopher Columbus dreamed of an unknown world, set sail on an uncharted ocean and discovered a new world. Copernicus dreamed of an unseen world and with the aid of an improvised telescope revealed it, eliminating much fear and superstition. Edison dreamed of a lamp that could be lighted by electricity, went to work on his dream, and despite the fact that he met with 10,000 failures, he gave the world that lamp. So let no one discourage you from dreaming. But make sure you back your dreams with action based on definiteness of purpose. Your chances for success are as great as have been those of anyone who has preceded you. In many ways, your chances are greater, for you now have access to the knowledge of the principle of individual achievement that millions of successful people of the past had to acquire the long and hard way. Those who are wise share most of their riches generously. They share their confidences sparingly and take great care not to misplace them. And when they take of their aims and plans, they generally do it by action rather than by words. Those who are wise listen much and speak with caution, for they know that only by way of listening can one learn something of value, while one may learn nothing when speaking unless it be the folly of taking too much. The wise, when in doubt about whether or not to speak, take their doubts into account and keep quiet. Exchange of thought through intercourse of speech is one of the more important means by which all people gather useful knowledge, create plans for the attainment of their definite major purpose, and find ways and means of carrying out these plans. And roundtable discussions are an outstanding feature among those in the higher brackets of achievements. But these are far different from the idle discussions in which some open their minds to anyone who wishes to enter. Whew, that was intense. Chapter 5, the habit of going the extra mile. An important principle of success in all walks of life and in all occupations is a willingness to go the extra mile, which means the rendering of more and better service than that for which one is paid, and giving it with a positive mental attitude. Search wherever you will for a single sound argument against this principle, and you will not find it, nor will you find a single instance of enduring success which was not attained in part by its application. This principle is not the creation of humankind. It is a part of nature's handiwork, for it is obvious that every living creature below the intelligence of humans is forced to apply the principle in order to survive. Many may disregard the principle if they choose, but they cannot do so and at the same time enjoy the fruits of enduring success. Observe how nature applies this principle in the production of food that grows from soil. where the farmer is forced to go the extra mile by clearing the land, plowing it, and planting the seed at the right time of year, and there is no advance pay for any of this. But observe that if he does work in harmony with nature's laws and performs the necessary amount of labor, nature takes over the job where the farmer's labor ends, germinates the planted seed, and develops it into crops. And observe thoughtfully this significant fact. For every grain of wheat or corn the farmer plants in the soil, nature yields perhaps 100 grains, thus enabling the farmer to benefit by the law of increasing returns. Nature goes the extra mile by producing enough of everything for her needs, together with a surplus for emergencies and waste. For example, the fruit on the trees, the bloom from which the fruit is grown, the frogs in the pond, and the fish in the seas. If this were not true, the species of all living things would soon vanish. Some believe that the beasts and birds of the jungle live without labor, but thoughtful people know that this is not true. It is true that nature provides the sources of food for every living thing, but every creature must labor before it may eat that food. You must labor before you may eat that food. Thus, we see that nature discourages the habit which some have acquired of trying to get something for nothing. The advantages of the habit of going the extra mile are definite and understandable. Let us examine some of them and be convinced. The habit brings the individual to the favorable attention of those who can and will provide opportunities for self-advancement. It tends to make one indispensable in many different human relationships, and it therefore enables one to command more than average compensation for personal services. It leads to mental growth and to physical skill and perfection in many forms of endeavor, thereby adding to one's earning capacity. It protects one against the loss of employment when employment is scarce, and places one in a position to command the best jobs. It enables one to profit by being noticed, since the majority of people do not practice the habit. It leads to the development of a positive mental attitude, which is essential for enduring success. It tends to develop a keen, alert imagination, because it is a habit which inspires one to consciously, It tends to develop a keen, alert imagination because it is a habit which inspires one continuously to seek new and better ways of rendering service. It develops the important quality of personal initiative. It develops self-reliance and courage. It serves to build the confidence of others in one's integrity. It aids in the elimination of the destructive habit of procrastination. It develops definiteness of purpose, ensuring one against the common habit of aimlessness. There is still another and a greater reason for following the habit of going the extra mile. It gives one the only logical reason for asking for increased compensation. If an employee performs no more service than that for which the employee is being paid, then obviously he or she is receiving just that much pay. That employee must render the amount of service called for by the amount of salary in order to hold the job. But one has the privilege always of rendering a surplus of service as a means of accumulating goodwill and to provide a just reason for demanding more pay, a better position, or both. How going the extra mile is related to the 12 riches. The habit of going the extra mile is only one of the 17 principles of the philosophy that Mr. Carnegie has recommended to those who are seeking riches. But let us consider how it is directly related to the 12 riches. First, this habit is inseparably related to the development of the most important of the 12 riches, a positive mental attitude. When someone becomes the master of his own emotions and learns the blessed art of self-expression through useful service to others, that person has gone far toward the development of a positive mental attitude. With a positive mental attitude as a builder of the proper thought pattern, the remainder of the 12 riches falls into the pattern as naturally as night follows day and as inevitably. Recognize this truth, and you will understand why the habit of going the extra mile provides benefits far beyond the mere accumulation of material riches. You will understand also why this principle has been given first place in Mr. Carnegie's philosophy of individual achievement. Let us now observe that the admonition to render more service and better service than that for which one is paid is paradoxical, because it is impossible for anyone to render such service without receiving appropriate compensation. The compensation may come in many forms and from many different sources, some of them strange and unexpected sources, but come at will. The worker who renders this type of service may not always receive appropriate compensation from the person to whom he renders the service, but this habit will attract to him many opportunities for self-advancement, among them new and more favorable sources of employment. Thus his pay will come to him indirectly. Ralph Waldo Emerson had this truth in mind when he said in his essay, Compensation, from 1841. If you serve an ungrateful master, serve him the more. Put God in your debt. Every stroke shall be repaid. The longer the payment is withholden, the better for you. For compound interest on compound interest is the rate and usage of this exchequer. Dang, that is good. Oh, snap. We guys getting some nuggets. Speaking once more in terms that seem paradoxical, be reminded that the most profitable time one can devote to labor is that for which one receives no direct or immediate financial compensation. Remember, there are two forms of compensation available to those who work for wages. One is the wages received in money. The other is the skill attained from experiences, a form of compensation which often exceeds monetary remuneration. For skill and experience are the worker's most important stock in trade through which to be promoted to higher pay and greater responsibilities. This is an asset of which no worker can be cheated, no matter how selfish or greedy his immediate employer may be. It is the compound interest on compound interest which Emerson mentioned. It was this very asset which enabled Charles M. Schwab to climb step by step from his lowly beginning as a day laborer in the highest position his employer had to offer, and it was this asset as well which brought Mr. Schwab a bonus of more than 10 times the amount of his salary. The $1 million bonus which Mr. Schwab received was his payoff for having put his best efforts into every job he performed. A circumstance, let us remember, which he controlled entirely. And it was a circumstance that could not have happened if he had not followed the habit of going the extra mile. And here let us note that those who follow the habit of going the extra mile thereby place the purchaser of their services under a double obligation to pay a just compensation. One being an obligation based upon a sense of fairness, the other based on the fear of losing a valuable employee. And we understand, too, what a great industrial leader had in mind when he said, personally, I am not so much interested in a 40-hour work week minimum work law as I am in finding how I can crowd 40 hours into a single day. It was this same man who said, if I were compelled to risk my chances of success upon but one of the 17 principles of achievement, I would without hesitancy stake everything on the principle of going the extra mile. Fortunately, however, he was not obligated to make this choice, for the 17 principles of success are related to one another like the links of a chain. Therefore, they blend into a medium of great power through coordination of their use. The omission of any one of these principles would weaken that power, just as the removal of a single link would weaken the chain. Each of these principles represents, through its use, a definite positive quality of the mind, and every circumstance that draws upon the power of thought calls for the use of some combination of the principles. The 17 principles may be likened to the 26 letters of the alphabet, through the combination of which all human thought may be expressed. The individual letters of the alphabet convey little or no meaning, but when they are combined into words, they may express any thought one can conceive. The 17 principles are the alphabet of individual achievement, through which all talents may be expressed in their highest and most beneficial form, and they provide the means by which one may attain the great master key to riches. Some who have benefited by the habit of going the extra mile. No one ever performs any action without consequences. Let us see if we can reveal the consequences that will justify the habit of going the extra mile by observing a few who have been inspired by it. Many years ago, an elderly lady was strolling through a Pittsburgh department store, obviously killing time. She passed counter after counter without anyone paying any attention to her. All the clerks had spotted her an idle looker who had no intention of buying. They made it a point of looking in another direction when she stopped at their counters. Finally, the lady came to a counter that was attended by a young clerk who politely asked if he might serve her. "No," she replied. "I'm just killing time, waiting for the rain to stop so I can go home." "Very well, madam," the young man said with a smile. "May I bring out a chair for you?" And he brought it without waiting for her answer. After the rain slacked, the young man took the old lady by the arm, escorted her to the street, and bade her goodbye, and she left. She asked him for his card. Several months later, the owner of the store received a letter asking that this young man be sent to Scotland to take an order for the furnishings of a home. The owner of the store wrote back that he was sorry the young man did not work in the house furnishings department, but he explained that he would be glad to send an experienced man to do the job. Back came a reply that no one would do except this particular young man. The letters were signed by Andrew Carnegie, and the house he wanted furnished was Skibo Castle in Scotland. The elderly lady was Mr. Carnegie's mother. The young man was sent to Scotland. He received an order for several $100,000 worth of household furnishings, and with it a partnership in the store. He later became the owner of a half interest in the store. Some years ago, the editor of a magazine was invited to deliver a speech at a college in Davenport, Iowa. He accepted the invitation for his regular modest fee, plus traveling expenses. While at the college, he picked up enough ideas for several stories he was planning to write for his magazine. When he was asked to turn in his expense account, he refused, saying he had already been adequately paid by the stories he was now able to write. He took the train back to Chicago, feeling well repaid for his trip. News of his refusal to accept his fee reached the journalism students to whom he had spoken, since this was an example of a real-life journalistic experience. The following week, he began to receive from Davenport many subscriptions to his magazine. By the end of the week, he had received many thousands of dollars in cash subscriptions. Then followed a letter from the college president explaining that the subscriptions had come from his students. During the following 2 years, the students and the graduates of the college sent in more than $50,000 in subscriptions to the young man's magazine. This story was so impressive that it was written up in a magazine that had a circulation throughout the English-speaking world, prompting more subscriptions to come from many different countries. Thus, by rendering service without collecting, the editor had started the law of increasing returns to work in his behalf, and it yielded him a return of over 500 times his investment. The habit of going the extra mile is no pipe dream. It pays, and pays handsomely. Moreover, it never forgets. Like other types of investments, the habit of going the extra mile often yields dividends throughout one's lifetime. Let's look at what happened when someone else neglected an opportunity to go the extra mile. Late one rainy afternoon, an automobile salesman sat at his desk in the showroom of the New York branch of a well-known luxury car company. The door opened, and in walked a man, jauntily swinging a cane. The salesman looked up from his afternoon paper, took a swift glance at the newcomer, and immediately spotted him as another of those window shoppers who do nothing but waste one's valuable time. He went back to his newspaper and took another sip from his coffee, not taking the trouble to rise from his chair. The man with the cane walked through the showroom, looking casually first at one car and then another. Finally, he walked over to where the salesman was sitting and reading, leaned on his cane, and nonchalantly asked the price of 3 different automobiles on the floor. Without looking up from his newspaper, the salesman muttered the prices. The man with the cane walked back over to the 3 models he had been looking at, kicked the tires of each one, then returned to the uninterested salesman and said, "Well, I hardly know whether I will take this one, that one, the other one over there, or whether I'll buy all 3. The salesman turned to the next page of the newspaper and smirked. "Sure," he said. Then the man with the cane said, "Well, I think I've decided. Write me up a sales slip for the convertible." He took out his checkbook, wrote out a check, and handed it to the salesman, who, now very much alert, had finally put down the newspaper and walked out. When the salesman saw the name on the check, he went white and saw stars. The name on the check was the same as the name on the museum down the fancy street. He realized far too late that if he had gone the extra mile, he indeed could easily have sold 3 of the cars in his showroom to Harry Payne Whitney, freely offering anything except one's very best service is costly business, a fact many have learned too late. Over 40 years ago, another young salesman held a similar position in a hardware store. One slow day, he observed that the store had a lot of odds and ends that were out of date and not selling. Having time on his hands, he rigged up a special table in the middle of the store. He loaded it with some of his unsaleable merchandise, marking it at the bargain price of $0.10 an article. To his surprise, and that of the owner of the store, the gadgets sold like hotcakes. The legendary all-American concept of the 5 and 10 cent store had been invented on the spot by young Frank W. Woolworth. All he was doing was going the extra mile, and his idea won him a fortune and a major place in American business history. Moreover, the same idea made several others rich, and variations of the idea are at the heart of many of the more profitable merchandising systems in America. No one told young Woolworth to exercise his right to personal initiative. No one paid for doing so, yet his action led to ever-increasing returns for his efforts. There is something about this habit of doing more than one is paid for, which works in one's behalf, even while one sleeps. Once it begins to work, it piles up riches so fast that it seems like magic, which, like Aladdin's lamp, draws to one's aid an army of genii who come laden with bags of gold. One day, a young newspaper reporter was sent to interview Andrew Carnegie in order to write a story about his stupendous achievements in the industrial world. During the interview, Carnegie dropped a hint that if the reporter had the vision to go the extra mile, to the extent of 20 years of unprofitable labor, he might acquire a fortune comparable to that of the great steelmaster. The reporter accepted that challenge and went to work. After 20 years of this unprofitable labor, almost to the day, the reporter gave the world the net results of what he had learned about Andrew Carnegie's methods of accumulating riches, as well as what he had learned of the methods of some 500 others who had accumulated great riches by the simple expedient of going the extra mile. Today, that information is being circulated in book form in practically every English-speaking country in the world, and others, to be fair, where it is serving many millions of people. I mean, even right now, I'm speaking this online. This was from 125 years ago. And now it is serving many millions of people who wish to learn the secret of achievement through the exercise of personal initiative. It has been translated into many foreign languages. It is designed to help those who are not afraid of doing more than they are paid for and who wish to convert this share of American opportunity into some form of riches. The compensation this former newspaper reporter is now receiving for his 20 years of unprofitable labor affords him riches sufficient for all his needs. Among the greatest of these are peace of mind, priceless friendships throughout the world, and the form of enduring happiness, which is the lot of everyone who has found desired work, likes it, and is busily engaged in performing it. You will remember that Charles M. Schwab began as a laborer, not afraid to go the extra mile. A few years later, his private railroad car was being switched onto the siding at his steel plant in Pennsylvania. It was a cold, frosty morning. As he alighted from the car, he was met by a young man with a notebook in his hands. Who hurriedly explained that he was an assistant to the general office of the steel company and that he had come down to meet the car to see if Mr. Schwab needed any memos written, messages sent, or the like. Who asked you to meet me? Mr. Schwab asked. No one, the young man replied. I saw the notice announcing your arrival, so I came down to meet you, hoping I might be of some service. Think of that. He came down hoping he might be able to find something to do for which he was not paid extra. And he came on his own initiative, without being told. Mr. Schwab thanked him politely for his thoughtfulness, but said he had no need for any such help at the moment. After carefully noting the young man's name, he sent the lad back to his work. That night, when Schwab's private railroad car was hitched to the night train for its return to New York City, it carried the willing young man. He had been assigned at Mr. Schwab's request for service in New York as one of the steel magnate's personal assistants. The lad's name was Williams. He remained in Mr. Schwab's service for several years, and during this time, opportunity after opportunity for promotion came to him unsolicited. It is peculiar how such opportunities have a way of trailing the people who make it their business to go the extra mile. But they always do very definitely. Finally, an opportunity came to young Williams which he could not ignore. He was made president and large stockholder in one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the United States, a job which yielded him a fortune far greater than his needs. This incident is clear evidence of what can happen and of what has been happening all down through the years under the American way of life. Here is the appropriate place to remind you of an important thing about the habit of going the extra mile by doing more than one is paid for. It is the strange influence it has on those who do it. The greatest benefit from this habit does not come to those who the service is rendered. It comes to those who render the service in the form of a changed mental attitude, which gives them more influence with other people, more self-reliance, greater initiative, more enthusiasm, more vision, and more definiteness of purpose. All these qualities are qualities of successful achievement. Do the thing, and you shall have the power, said Emerson. Ah, yes, the power. What can we do in our world without power? But it must be the type of power which attracts other people instead of repelling them. It must be the form of power which gains momentum from the law of increasing returns, through the operation of which one's act and deeds come back greatly multiplied. You who work for wages should learn more about this showing and reaping business. Then you would understand why no one can go on forever sowing the seed of inadequate service while reaping a harvest of full-grown pay. You would know that there must come a halt to the habit of demanding a full day's pay of work for a poor day's work. You would know that there must come a halt to the habit of demanding a full day's pay for a poor day's work. That's true. Makes sense. And you who do not work for wages, but who wish to get more of the better things of life, let us have a word with you. Why do you not become wise and start getting what you wish the easy and sure way? Yes, there is an easy and a sure way to promote oneself into whatever one wants from life. And its secret becomes known to all who make it their business to go the extra mile. This secret can be uncovered in no other manner, for it is wrapped up in that extra mile. The pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is not a mere fairy tale. The end of the extra mile is the spot where the rainbow ends. And that is where the pot of gold is hidden. Few people ever catch up with the end of the rainbow. When we get to where we thought the rainbow ended, we find it is still far in the distance. The trouble with most of us is that we do not know how to follow rainbows. Those who know the secret know that the end of the rainbow can be reached only by going the extra mile. Late one afternoon, William C. Durant, the founder of General Motors, walked into his bank after banking hours and asked for some favor that normally would have been taken care of during banking hours. The man who granted the favor was Carroll Downs, a lesser officer of the bank. He not only served Mr. Durant with efficiency, but he went the extra mile and added courtesy to the service. He made Mr. Durant feel that it was a real pleasure to serve him. The incident seemed trivial, and of itself it was of little importance. Unknown to Mr. Downs, though, this courtesy was destined to have repercussions of a far-reaching nature. The next day, Mr. Durant asked Downs to come to his office. That visit led to the offer of a position which Downs accepted. He was given a desk in a general office where nearly 100 other people worked. His salary to begin with was modest. At the end of the first day, when the gong rang announcing the close of the day's work, Downs noticed that all the employees grabbed their hats and coats and made a rush for the door. He sat still, waiting for the others to leave the office. After they left, he remained at his desk, wondering why everyone showed such great haste to get away at the very second of quitting time. 15 minutes later, Mr. Durant opened the door of his private office, saw Downs still at his desk, and asked Downs whether he understood that he was privileged to stop work at 5:30. "Oh yes," Downs replied, "but I did not want to be run over in the rush." Then he asked if he could be of any service to Mr. Durant. He was told he might find a pencil for the motor magnate. He got the pencil, ran it through the pencil sharpener, and took it to Mr. Durant. Mr. Durant thanked him and said good night. The next day, at quitting time, Downs remained at his desk again after the rush was over. This time, though, he waited with purpose. In a little while, Mr. Durant came out of his private office and asked again if Downs did not understand that 5:30 was the time for closing. "Yes," Downs said with a smile, "I understand it is quitting time for the others, but I have heard no one say that I have to leave the office when the day is officially closed, so I chose to remain here with the hope that I might be of some slight service to you." "What an unusual hope," Durant exclaimed. "Where did you get that idea?" "I got it from the scene I witness here at closing time every day." Downs replied to Mr. Durant, grunted some reply which Downs did not hear distinctly, and returned to his office. "I got it from the scene I witness here at closing time every day," Downs replied. Mr. Durant grunted some reply which Downs did not hear distinctly and returned to his office. From then on, Downs always remained at his desk after closing time until he saw Mr. Durant leave for the day. He was not paid to work overtime. No one told him to do it. No one promised him anything for remaining. And as far as the casual observer might know, he was wasting his time. Several months later, Downs was called into Mr. Durant's office and informed that he had been chosen to go out to a new plant that had been purchased recently to supervise the installation of the plant machinery. Imagine that. A former bank official becoming a machinery expert in a few months. Without quibbling, Downs accepted the assignment and went on his way. He did not say, "Why, Mr. Durant? I know nothing about the installation of machinery." He did not say, "That's not my job," or "I'm not paid to install machinery." No, he went to work and did what was requested of him. Moreover, he went at the job with a pleasant mental attitude. 3 months later, the job was completed. It was done so well that Mr. Durant called Downs into his office and asked him where he learned about machinery. "Oh," Downs explained, "I never learned, Mr. Durant. I merely looked around, found men who knew how to get the job done, put them to work, and they did it." "Splendid," Mr. Durant explained. "There are two types of people who are valuable. One can do something and do it well without complaining about being overworked. The other is the one who can get other people to do things well without complaining. You are both types wrapped into one package." Downs thanked him for the compliment and turned to go. "Wait a moment," Durant requested. "I forgot to tell you that you are the manager of the plant you have installed, and your salary to start with has just been doubled." The following 10 years of association with Mr. Durant were worth between $10 million and $12 million to Carol Downs, a huge sum at that time. He became an intimate advisor to the Motor King and made himself rich as a result. The main trouble with so many of us is that we see men who have arrived and we evaluate them in an hour of their triumph without taking the trouble to find out how or why they arrived. There is nothing more dramatic about the story of Carol Downs. The incidents mentioned occurred during the day's business without even a passing notice by the average person who worked along with Downs. And we doubt not that many of these fellow workers envied him because they believed he had been favored by Mr. Durant. Through some sort of pull or luck, or whatever it is that those who do not succeed use as an excuse to explain their own lack of progress. Well, to be candid, Downs did have an inside pull with Mr. Durant. He created that pull with his own initiative. He created it by going the extra mile in a matter as trivial as that of placing a neat point on a pencil when nothing was requested except a plain pencil. He created it by remaining at his desk with the hope that he might be of service to his employer after the rush was over at 5:30 each evening. He created it by using his right of personal initiative by finding men who understood how to install machinery instead of asking Durant where or how to find such men. Trace down these incidents step by step and you will find that Downs' success was due solely to his own initiative. Moreover, the story consists of a series of little tasks well performed in the right mental attitude. Perhaps there were 100 other men working for Mr. Durant who could have done as well as Downs, but the trouble with them was that they were searching for the end of the rainbow by running away from it in the 5:30 rush each afternoon. Long years afterward, a friend asked Carol Downs how he got his opportunity with Mr. Durant. "Oh," he modestly replied, I just made it my business to get in his way so he could see me. When he looked around, wanting some little service, he called on me because I was the only one in sight. In time, he got into the habit of calling on me." There you have it. Mr. Durant got into the habit of calling on Downs. Moreover, he found that Downs could and would assume responsibilities by going the extra mile. What a pity that all the American people do not catch something of this spirit of assuming greater responsibilities. What a pity that more of us do not begin speaking more of our privileges under the American way of life and less of the lack of opportunities in America. Is there anyone living in America today who would seriously claim that Carol Downs would have been better off if he had been forced by law to join the mad rush and quit his work at 5:30 in the afternoon? If he had done so, he would have received the standard wages for the sort of work he performed, but nothing more. Why should he have received more? His destiny was in his own hands. It was wrapped up in this one lone privilege, which should be the privilege of every American citizen, the right of personal initiative, through the exercise of which he had it a habit always to go the extra mile. Excuse me. That tells the whole story. There is no other secret to Downs' success. He admits it, and everyone familiar with the circumstances of his promotion from poverty to riches knows it. There is one thing no one seems to know. Why are there so few men and women who, like Carol Downs, discover the power implicit in doing more than one is paid for? It has in the seed of all great achievement. It is the secret of all noteworthy success, and yet it is so little understood that most people look upon it as some clever trick with which employers try to get more work out of their employees. This spirit of indifference toward the habit of going the extra mile was dramatically expressed by a wiseacre who once applied to Henry Ford for a job. Mr. Ford questioned the man about his experience, his habits, and other routine matters, and was satisfied with the replies. Then he asked, "How much money do you want for your services?" The man was evasive on this point, so Mr. Ford finally said, "Well, suppose you start in and show us what you can do, and we will pay you all you are worth after we have tried you out." Mr. Wiseacre exclaimed, "I'm getting more than that where I am now employed." And we doubt not that he told the truth. That explains precisely why so many people do not get ahead in life. They are getting more than they are worth where they are, and they never learn how to get ahead by becoming worth more. Dang. A famous story called A Message to Garcia, or Garcia. A famous story called A Message to Garcia. A famous story called A Message to Garcia tells how President William McKinley commissioned a young soldier by the name of Rowan to carry a message from the United States government to Garcia, the rebel chieftain during the Spanish-American War, whose exact whereabouts were not known. The young soldier took the message, made his way through the Cuban jungle, finally found Garcia, and delivered the note to him. That was all there was to the story. Just a private soldier carrying out his orders under difficulties and getting the job done without coming back with an excuse. The story fired imaginations and spread all over the world. The simple act of a man doing what he was told and doing it well became news of the first magnitude. A Message to Garcia was printed in booklet form, and the sales reached an all-time high for such publications, amounting on more than 10 million copies. This one story made the author famous, to say nothing of helping to make him rich. The story was popular because it had in it something of the magic power that belongs to the rare one who does something and does it well. The whole world is clamoring for such rare ones. They are needed and wanted in every walk of life. American industry has always had princely berths for those who can and will assume responsibilities and who get the job done with the right mental attitude by going the extra mile. Andrew Carnegie lifted no fewer than 40 such men, including Charles Schwab, from the lowly station of day laborers to millionaires. He understood the value of those who were willing to go the extra mile. Wherever he found one, he brought his find into the inner circle of his business and gave it an opportunity to earn all he was worth. Charles M. Schwab began work with Carnegie in the humble capacity of a stake driver at day wages. But step by step, he climbed to the top and became Carnegie's right-hand man. People do things or refrain from doing them because of a motive. The soundest of motives for the habit of going the extra mile is the fact that it yields enduring dividends in ways too numerous to mention. Too numerous to mention to all who follow the habit. No one has ever been known to achieve permanent success without doing more than he was paid for. The practice has its counterpart in the laws of nature. It has in back of it an impressive array of evidence as to its soundness, supplied by those who have made it a practice of going the extra mile. It is based on common sense and justice. The best of all methods of testing the soundness of this principle is that of putting it to work as a part of one's daily habits. Some truths we can learn only through our own experience. The best of all methods of testing the soundness of this principle is that of putting it to work as a part of one's daily habits. Some truths we can learn only through our own experience. Some will say, I am already doing more than I am paid for, but my employer is so selfish and greedy that he will not recognize the sort of service I am rendering. We all know there are the greedy who desire more service than that for which they are willing to pay. Selfish employers are like pieces of clay in the hands of a potter. Through their greed, they can be induced to reward the one who renders them more service than he or she is paid to render. Greedy employers do not wish to lose the services of one who makes a habit of going the extra mile. They know the value of such employees. Here, then, is the crowbar and the fulcrum with which employers can be pried loose from their greed. The clever will make it their business to become indispensable to a greedy employer by doing more and better work than any other employee. Greedy employers will give their eye teeth. Greedy employers will give their eye teeth. Give their eye teeth. Eyeteeth. Okay. Before parting with such an employee. Thus, the alleged greed of employers becomes a great asset to the one who follows the habit of going the extra mile. We have seen this technique applied at least 100 times as a means of manipulating greedy employers through the use of their own weakness. Not once have we seen it fail to work. On some occasions, the greedy employer failed to move as quickly as expected, but that proved to be unlucky because that employee attracted the attention of a competitive employer who made a bid for the services of the employee and secured them. There is no way to cheat those who follow the habit of going the extra mile. If they do not get proper recognition from one source, it comes voluntarily from some other source, usually when it is least expected. Those who go the extra mile and do it with the right kind of mental attitude never spend time looking for a job. They don't have to, for the job is always looking for them. Depressions may come and go, business may be good or poor, the country may be at war or at peace, but those who render more service and better service than they are paid for become indispensable and thereby insure themselves against unemployment. High wages and indispensability are twin sisters. They always have been and always will be. Not only is going the extra mile personally worthwhile, it profits one's business as well. In fact, going the extra mile makes perfect business sense. As we will see in the next section, going the extra mile makes good business sense. Many companies incorporate the concept of going the extra mile into their company mission. One of our popular airlines is one such company. The founder has done everything right, and so the company's known for its waiting list of applicants eager to join the company. One of the main ingredients for this company's success is its spectacular customer service. The founder himself says, I know it sounds simple, but I keep saying follow the golden rule of service. Serve others as you yourself would like to be served. I'll ask our people, do you like to go into a restaurant or department store and encounter salespeople who are indifferent to you, who don't care about your needs and wants, who treat you as if you're an object? Well, everybody has to answer that one way. No, we don't like that. Then I say, well, then don't be a hypocrite. Provide better service. Provide the service you yourself would like to receive. The revealing story of Edward Choate, spelled Choate. Some men who are smart and others who are wise have discovered the way to riches by the deliberate application of the principle of going the extra mile for financial gain. Those who are truly wise, however, recognize that the greatest payoff through this principle comes in terms of friendships which endure throughout life in harmonious human relationships. In performing a labor of love, in the capacity to understand people, in willingness to share one's blessings with others, all of which are among the 12 riches of life. Edward Choate is one who recognized this truth and has found the master key to riches. He lived in Los Angeles, where he sold life insurance. At the outset of his career as a life insurance salesman, he made a modest living from his efforts, but he broke no record in that field. He lost all of his money through an unfortunate business venture and found himself at the bottom of the ladder, forced to make a new start. I said an unfortunate business venture, but perhaps I should have said a fortunate business venture. For his loss influenced him to stop, look, listen, think, and to meditate on why fate seemed to lift some to high places of achievement, but condemn others to temporary defeat or permanent failure. Throughout his meditations, he became a student of the philosophy of individual achievement that Andrew Carnegie helped to provide through his colorful career. When Mr. Choate reached the lesson on going the extra mile, he was awakened by a keen sense of understanding he had never before experienced, and he recognized that the loss of material riches may lead one to the source of greater riches, consisting of one's spiritual forces. With this discovery, Mr. Choate began to appropriate one by one the 12 riches of life, beginning at the head of the list with the development of a positive mental attitude. For the time being, he ceased to think about the amount of life insurance he might sell and began to look around for opportunities to be of service to others who were burdened with problems they could not solve. His first opportunity came when he discovered a young man out in the deserts of California who had failed in a mining venture and was facing starvation. He took the young man in, fed him, encouraged him, and kept him in his home until he found a good position for him. In thus casting himself in the role of the Good Samaritan, Mr. Choate had no thought of financial gain, for it was obvious that a poverty-stricken, broken-spirited boy might never become a prospective purchaser of life insurance. Then, other opportunities to help the less fortunate began to reveal themselves so rapidly that it seemed as if Mr. Choate had made himself a magnet which attracted only those with difficult problems to be solved. But the appearance was deceiving, for he was only passing through a testing period by which he might demonstrate his sincerity of purpose in helping others. A period, let us not forget, which everyone who applies the principle of going the extra mile must experience in one way or another. Then the scene shifted, and the affairs of Edward Choate began to take a turn he probably had not expected. His life insurance sales began to mount higher and higher until at last they had reached an all-time high level. And miracle of miracles, one of the largest policies he had ever written up to that time was sold to the employer of the young man of the desert whom he had befriended. The sale was made without Mr. Choet's solicitation. Other sales began to come his way in the same manner until he was actually selling more insurance without any strenuous effort than he had ever sold previously by the hardest kind of labor. Moreover, he had tapped the field of life insurance salesmanship in which the policies he sold were of large amounts. Leaders of great responsibilities and extensive financial affairs began to send for him to counsel them in connection with their life insurance problems. His business grew until it brought him that goal so greatly coveted by all life insurance salespeople: life membership in the $1 Million Roundtable. Such a distinction is attained only by those who sell a minimum of $1 million a year in insurance for 3 consecutive years. There had been only 57 others before him to reach this outstanding achievement at the time. So in seeking spiritual riches, Choet also found material riches and found them in greater abundance than he had ever anticipated. 6 brief years after he had begun to cast himself for the role of the Good Samaritan, Mr. Choet sold more than $2 million of life insurance during the first 4 months of the year. The story of his achievements began to spread throughout the nation. It brought him invitations to speak before life insurance conventions, for other life insurance salespeople desired to know how he had managed to lift himself to so enviable a position in that profession. He told them, and quite contrary to the usual practice of those who are successful, he revealed the humility of heart by which he was inspired, frankly admitting that his achievements were the result of the application of the philosophy of others. Average successful people have a tendency to try to convey the impression that their success is due to their own smartness or wisdom, but they do not always give credit to their teachers and mentors. For it is obvious to all that no one ever attains a high degree of enduring success without the friendly cooperation of others, nor does anyone ever attain enduring success without helping others. Edward Choet is as rich in material values as he needs to be. He is far richer in spiritual values, however, for he has discovered, appropriated, and made intelligent use of all of the 12 riches of life, of which money is the last and the least in importance. Boom. I highly appreciate you. Big ups and thanks to Andrew Carnegie, to Dale Carnegie because he popped up as well, and to Napoleon Hill and everyone mentioned in this book, because man, we got some nuggets today. Today was a long read, but take what you understand from this. Really focus. You should have gotten that definiteness of purpose, and if you haven't yet, tomorrow re-listen to this, and I'm sure you will have it by then. I appreciate you highly. Make sure to write down that definiteness of purpose and imagine it as often as possible throughout the day, especially right in the morning so you know where you are going. I know where mine is, and I wish for you to know yours. Because besides going the extra mile, that is what will take you there. You've set the sails and the rudder of your sailboat. You know which direction you're going. You're steering that way, and then going the extra mile will provide the fuel and additional guide points of opportunities that'll lead you there. I appreciate you highly, whether you realize that or not. I hope you have an incredible day. Peace, and let's rock it out. Hit that up, do it, comment any questions, we'll respond, and I am here to help you as all of us are. Thank you very much.